A few days ago I made a video examining the claim that Merkel had admitted to the existence of no-go areas in Germany. The conclusion I reached was that she did genuinely say they existed, but we don't know how she defines the term. I also concluded that while there are claims that Germany has areas ruled by criminal gangs where even the police fear to go, there's not much evidence to back them up. Predictably, that video generated a lot of comments, which is a good thing. It also prompted me to do something that I always knew I was going to have to do sooner or later, and go to one of Germany's most notorious no-go areas. So this video is going to be a bit longer than usual, but I do think this is a very important discussion. It's not going to be a proper documentary though. I don't have the contacts, the experience or the time for that, but I do hope to be able to offer a little perspective. A lot of you commented to say that there are areas where certain classes of people may feel unsafe and that therefore these are no-go areas. But that's what I was saying in my video. If by no-go area you mean a place where there's more crime, then of course Germany has them. In most cases, the people talking about these no-go areas are people who've never actually been there or wouldn't be among those targeted if they did. So they're relying on second-hand information. Sometimes this information comes in the form of friends advising them not to go to a particular place or they'll be attacked. Sometimes it comes in the form of frankly sensationalist news reports. A few people who live in or near some of these areas commented to say that yes, there's quite a bit of crime there, but no, there's no truth in stories of the police only daring to go there in large groups. One woman did say that there are some parts of Germany she would feel uncomfortable going to with her wife, but added that generally Germany is reasonably safe, safer even than some other European countries. It's particularly amusing to see some people vehemently insist that there are no-go areas where Muslims are in charge, and other people just as vehemently insist that there are no-go areas where right-wing thugs are in charge. It's as if there's some kind of argument going on over whether no-go areas are the fault of immigration or Nazis. There is one place that might qualify as a no-go area under even the strictest of definitions, the village of Jamel in Mecklenburg-West Pomerania. It has a population of 35, of which most are members of the National Democratic Party of Germany, an extremist right-wing party which is considered by the authorities to be a threat to the constitutional order. Some of the other locals have left after fires on their properties, but as far as I know, although these are widely suspected to be cases of arson, the culprits, strangely, have never been identified. So I think it is fair to say that by any definition of the word, Jamel counts as a no-go area. But I can't imagine that there are any other places like that in Germany. Jamel is well known precisely because it is so unusual, a one-off. Now, I'm not qualified to talk about what it's like to be non-white in, for example, Saxony. With a suntan, I can pass myself off as vaguely Mediterranean, but the fact remains I am white and I haven't spent a lot of time in Saxony. I have been to Nuremberg a couple of times, another place which is notorious for being brown, and I never had any problems, but that doesn't prove anything. However, I do live fairly close to one of Germany's most notoriously crime-ridden cities. In fact, last year it made headlines when it emerged that its crime rate had dropped enough for it to lose its #1 position. By 2016, it had fallen to 4th place. So off I went to Frankfurt, the seat of the European Central Bank and, according to at least some, Germany's answer to Gotham City. Frankfurt has a population of nearly 750,000 and so is very similar in size to Seattle, which I was hoping would provide me with a sensible comparison. Unfortunately, it doesn't, because different places have different ways of collecting statistics. To give you just one example, Seattle has figures for arson but not vandalism, while Frankfurt has figures for vandalism but not arson. I suspect, but I don't know for sure, that the statistics I found for Seattle include only some of the more serious crimes, whereas in Frankfurt arson is so rare that it counts as other. However, generally speaking, it seems that Frankfurt's crime rate is much higher than the German average, while Seattle's is significantly lower than the US average. In 2016, Frankfurt's police registered a total of 114,819 crimes. That is a very big number, but bear in mind that it includes everything. For example, 10% were cases of obtaining a service by false pretenses, which is the category that fare dodging comes into. 15% were violations of immigration laws, which means things like people outstaying their visas. There's an interesting lesson to be learned here about statistics. For example, in 2016 compared with 2015, the number of cases of other sexual harassment, so not rape or sexual abuse, increased by 100%. That is, it doubled. So, how many cases were there? 76. The number of recorded cases rose from 38 to 76. I mean, that's 76 too many, but still, it's 76. Similarly, murder. The number of murders rose by 50%. That is, it went up from 6 to 9. Germany's former crime capital had a grand total of 9 murders in the whole of 2016. This means that in that year, Frankfurt had 1.2 murders for every 100,000 head of population. That's what's meant by murder rate. The German national average was just a little bit less than 0.9. By comparison, in the same year there were 19 murders in Seattle, giving a murder rate of 2.7. That's quite a bit higher than Frankfurt's rate, but significantly lower than the US national average, which is 4.9. The city with the highest murder rate in the world in 2016 was Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, with 130 murders per 100,000 head of population. That's more than 100 times Frankfurt's rate. This channel currently has about 37,000 subscribers. If they all lived in Caracas, I would expect 48 of them to be murdered in 1 year. If they all lived in Frankfurt, I would expect one of them to be murdered in 2 years. So, enough facts and figures. What did I find in Frankfurt? It made sense, obviously, to go to the area where the crime is most concentrated. That's the area between the central train station and where the city's fortifications used to be. It roughly coincides with an actual administrative district with definite borders, the Bahnhofsviertel. I should say that I was there during daylight hours. Frankfurt is fairly close to me, but not quite close enough for a comfortable commute. And I wasn't about to book a hotel room just to prove a point. Also, although I don't personally feel that this place qualifies as a no-go area, it does have a high crime rate. I don't particularly want to find out what happens when you accidentally point a massive video camera in the general direction of a drug dealer. So I'm afraid you're going to have to take my word for it that even at night, as long as you mind your own business, you should be okay. I did see a couple of things. There was one guy who was either drunk or high, standing in the middle of the road holding up the traffic for no reason, and at one point a police car dramatically drew up, 2 officers jumped out and chased a man into the station, and I'd never seen anything like that happen before. I was approached by 4 people. One shop owner asked me to show him what footage I'd taken of his shop. One restaurant owner asked if I was a building inspector. One guy told me to get out of the way of his car, which was fair. And one lady asked me what camera I'd recommend to her. And apart from that, nothing. I spent a couple of hours walking around with a fairly expensive video camera and lived to tell the tale. This area escaped the worst of Allied air raids, and so when the first Americans arrived after the Second World War, it was here that they were initially billeted, with locals desperately trying to find ways to feed and house themselves and their families. It wasn't long before it became known for prostitution. Frankfurt's red light district is still here, but is only one small part of the whole neighbourhood, centred around Taunusstraße. This is Germany's biggest walk-in brothel, with 180 rooms. I don't know about you, but when I hear the phrase no-go area, I think of squalor and neglect. But even I was surprised at how little actual squalor there seemed to be. Poverty and even some homelessness, yes, but nothing like the scale of what I saw in San Francisco's Tenderloin district. A particular feature of the Bahnhofsviertel is the high number of foreigners. About 60% of residents are not German. Some are actual criminals here to sell drugs, but others are here because when you've just arrived in a new country with little money, your options are limited. But this does mean that the area has a certain cosmopolitan flair, with a large number of restaurants and snack bars offering exotic food from all over the world. And that is very convenient for travellers, since this area is right next to one of Germany's most important railway hubs. Perhaps this is why there are quite a few relatively upmarket places. They're certainly not aimed at the locals, which means that they're attracting tourists, business people and the like straight into the heart of Germany's most notorious hotspots for crime. That doesn't sound to me much like a no-go area, and while I did see a couple of people smoking joints, I certainly didn't see any crack pipes, despite all the sensationalist press reports of people openly smoking crack in broad daylight and in public. Even the notorious Level B wasn't as bad as even I expected. Back in the 1970s, city planners were still hoping to safely segregate pedestrians from road traffic by means of tunnels. Level B connects the station with the underground S-Bahn and U-Bahn stations, as well as the Bahnhofsviertel. It became known as a dangerous, seedy place where junkies and dealers congregated. As late as last year, newspapers were still printing stories of dealers at every entrance, openly selling their wares at all hours of the day, while confusion over whether it fell into the jurisdiction of the city police or the federal police meant that law enforcement did nothing about it. I didn't see any of that, and never have done. I'm sure there is some truth to the stories, and these subterranean passages can be very creepy at night, but I honestly can't confirm any of the stories, and I certainly don't get the impression that it's as bad as the media make it out to be. So there you have it. Drugs and crime? Yes, certainly. A danger to all who venture in there? Well, definitely not during the day, and I suspect, given the number of pretty nice restaurants I saw, not particularly at night either. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to send me a postcard, here's the address. And don't forget to visit my website and follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Also, if you'd like access to special bonus content and help with the costs of running this channel, please consider making a small monthly donation on Patreon.